What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy and Frames Fantasy Football Kickoff show for Week 12. We're a couple weeks away from fantasy playoffs, and some of you out there are actually starting your fantasy playoffs today. As crazy as that sounds, but that's okay. We're going to help get you, set up straight and on the road there to success. But before we get into that, let's get into this. Keith Fleming, my friend, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm a little frustrated because I have a little PTSD from Georgia losing, their only loss last year being to a really good Alabama team in the SEC title game. As of yesterday at like 3 o'clock, I thought we beat UMass, beat Tech, and get some rest, and we'll see you in the playoffs. And now, because of all the pandemonium from yesterday, we are going to definitely be playing in the SEC title game, which in some ways is good because that means obviously if we win that game, we'll get a bye. But that also means that if we lose, we'll have some people probably on the committee saying, even though all three of our licenses will be two very good ranked teams, either on the road or on a neutral site, I'm worried that we'll get, left out again. So, a little nervous, but the good news is Falcons are on a bye this week. They can't lose if they're on a bye. That's good news, Jorge.
That is good news, barring any injury, which we do not wish on anybody. Yeah, you're right. Falcons are on the bye. A lot of teams on the bye. 6 teams on the bye this week. We got some comments in the chat already. We'll get to those.
Bye-mageddon, man. My wife.
I know. It's here, which you would think, for players fantasy managers who are always like, up in the air about, do I start this player or that player? Bye-mageddon kind of takes away that indecisiveness from you, in which case it's like, nope, this is the only player I have to play, and this is the best one. So there we go. And so that can kind of be a calming effect to those, but I'm sure some people in the chat here still needs a little bit of guidance, so let's help them out, Keith.
Absolutely.
Got Austin in the chat. Start Tyrone Tracy or Jonathan Taylor. Man, I mean Tracy has a great matchup versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who on the season in half PPR have been allowing, I want to say, the sixth most fantasy points per game to the position. Daniel Jones is gone. Tommy DeVito is the quarterback now, which I think they totally screwed over Drew Lock, to be honest with you. And the running game has been the only consistent thing, ironically, for the New York Giants. That being said, you get more balance on offense with Jonathan Taylor, although you have to wonder about the red zone opportunities going to Anthony Richardson at the goal line. But I think I'll take the better offense than a one-dimensional one. What are your thoughts?
If it's a PPR league, I actually would start Tracy. I just think that he's got probably a higher floor, believe it or not. I mean, we know one thing about the Lions. They are still an unbelievably good run defense. Like, that is what they are best at. I think that with their 2 cornerbacks down, you'd have to assume the Colts are going to probably let it air out a little bit more than they have in maybe some Richardson games. If it's a standard, league or even a half PPR, I would tend to agree with you. Like, just roll with Taylor. He's, you took him so high. I think you could live probably with benching Tracy, and him going off be tough too with Taylor. But with PPR and the fact that I think the Bucs give up almost 6 receptions per game to running backs, Tracy, we know, was a wide receiver before his final year of college and being converted to a running back. If you're getting that full point PPR, I would lean, Tracy, which I know sounds insane, but I just think he's got the better matchup. And obviously Taylor just doesn't catch passes, which is the issue.
Okay, so hopefully that answered your question there. Austin has a question. Flex Rashad White or JSN? So I think you and I both found this guy or this person, I should say, and I forget, is it Data Orama or something like that on Twitter? And he posted a really good stat regarding JSN as far as facing cover three coverages, how his productivity has actually declined facing those coverages, which Arizona runs quite a bit, versus DK Metcalf, who actually is more successful against those coverages. So I think for me, that kind of sways me toward Rashad White. What are your thoughts?
I would agree. The only caveat I would say, Austin, is if you are projected to lose and you think you need a really big game, I would go with JSN here. The issues is obviously like not only what you're talking about, but also the weather. They're talking about a pretty nasty rain bowl, which is I think going to lead to kind of a slugfest between Seattle and Arizona. It's just the issue with White is how many snaps is he going to get? How much can he do with the amount of work he's going to get? I think he's the much safer play, and in normal circumstance, I'd play him. But I would say that if you need, you're going to need a bunch of points from a few guys above expectation in order to, win this matchup. I think JSN has got obviously a higher ceiling, but I agree with you. I just, in a vacuum, I would definitely go White.
All right. Let's go here. Summer, welcome back, Summer. Good morning to you. We need 2 out of Brian Burns, Jerome Baker, Levante, or Tyrese Knight. So I do like the fact that Tristan Wirfs, I believe, is declared out for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which gives Brian Burns an advantage. It depends on whether your league is really big play centered. Like if you're getting like 5 or 6 points for a sack, Brian Burns for me is a smash play right here. But if it's one of those where you're only getting like 2 or 3 for a sack, I'd lean more of the linebacker. So therefore, that kind of sways me more to a Tyrese Knight, who last week played very well. 81% of snaps, a 21.6 tackle efficiency for 11 tackles per PFF. Him and Ernest Jones seem to be simpatico when it comes to, tackle numbers there. So I would definitely do start Tyrese Knight and Levante. Levante David, the Giants again, one-dimensional. Tyron Tracy. You have a run-stopping linebacker who's going against a team that's going to be running the ball a lot. Kind of goes hand in hand. But so those would be my 2: Tyrese Knight and Levante David. However, like I said, if your IDP league rewards like 5 or 6 points for a big play like an interception or a sack, Brian Burns kind of replaces Tyrese Knight for me, where it'd be Levante and Brian Burns. So hopefully that answers your question. The worst, it says, yo, what's up, fellas? You're not the worst, you're the best. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Appreciate you there. Got Rachel in the chat. Good morning, friends. Good morning to you, Rachel. Good morning, good morning, good morning. You can check out Rachel's, by the way, Thursday Night Football previews over at fantasyandframes.com each and every week going forward for the rest of the season to get you ready on the best picks to play in whatever platform you're using, whether it's Underdog. I believe she loves using Underdog the most. So definitely go over there and get all the information you need so she can help you win some money in those pick'em spots there. Going to Susie in the chat. Good morning, Susie. Hunter Henry or Mark Andrews for starting tight end. The Ravens going against the Chargers in the Harbaugh Bowl Part 2 on Monday Night Football. And then, of course, the Patriots going against the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Keith, what are your thoughts here?
For me, it's pretty easy. It's Hunter Henry. Andrews has been really good lately. And if you drafted him, that's been a great sign after the start to the season. But Chargers defense is just really good, particularly against tight ends. Last week we played the Bengals, who we know is a team that has done very well getting their tight ends involved. Those guys did nothing. I mean, Gesicki didn't even catch a pass. I think Sample had 2 catches. A few weeks ago, they played the Browns. David Njoku, he only had 5 catches for 29 yards. So, that was also with Jameis, not with Deshaun Watson. So, Henry's the focal point, kind of the passing game, the one constant for Drake May, who's been great. I think Miami is going to score points on New England, meaning that again, I think going to be a sneaky shootout. So I think Henry is both the safer play from a floor perspective and ceiling.
100%. I'm trying to pull up his receiving yards per game since week 8. So, of course, my data suite crashes just as I'm looking up information. Totally agree with you. Hunter Henry has been the go-to guy for the for the New England Patriots with Drake May. So, give me Hunter Henry in this matchup there. Dylan, welcome back. Dylan, good morning. It's game day. It is game day. Get excited, folks. Woo! PPR, 3 questions. Different leagues, okay. 1 flex needed for upside. Vele for the Denver Broncos, Nick Westbrook or Keeney, or Shoemaker. Let's start with those 3. And who I have to say may surprise you, Keith. But I'm curious to hear who you got if you had to pick one this week.
If he's saying upside, it's for sure Westbrook.
Yes.
Keeney, touchdown in 5 of 6. The Titans have 12 passing touchdowns all this year. So think about that. That guy has actually scored a touchdown in 5 of 6 games with a putrid passing game. So you might be going, Keith, why are you saying upside? Because he's playing all the snaps now. Since they traded DeAndre Hopkins, he's on the field like 90% of the time. He is the guy that can make big plays. And look, like this Texans defense overall, pretty good. But let's not forget that Cooper Rush just threw for 350 yards on him. So you can throw them. They gave up, multiple big plays. I like Shoemaker's, I think, a really good play this week. But if it sounds like you're looking for upside. It's definitely Westbrook, a kind who seems to be able to take like 4 targets each week and turn into 15, 20 points.
100% agree. And even if it wasn't upside and it's just a floor, I'd still go for Keeney. We look at the average depth of target for Will Levis as well as for Keeney right there in terms of getting the ball downfield. It just makes too much sense. So, yeah, definitely going with Nick Westbrook or Keeney for the Titans there. Next question. He has 1 quarterback. He needs 1 for upside. Kyler going against Seattle or Baker going against the Giants. I want to say Dylan or Dynasty Bro, D-Bro over from Fantasy Pros had a great stat he posted yesterday where it's like the Giants allow a perfect passer rating, or I think it was like a perfect passer rating to deep balls. So for that purpose, Baker kind of seems like the kind of the go-to for me, even though Kyler does have the scrambling upside, which he'll probably be using a lot in this situation here for Arizona. But James Conner, James Conner's just been so good. I think he kind of takes away from the rushing upside for Kyler Murray. So I think I'm going to go Baker Mayfield here. My only concern with Baker is that do they get up too much by halftime, and then the Buccaneers just need to run the ball because they're already out to a commanding lead. But I still want to lean Baker here. What about you, Keith?
Yeah, 100% agree. And Baker, surprisingly has rushing upside himself. He's had 20 or more rushing yards in 6 games this season. So, I mean, it's not that big of a disparity between Murray and Baker that you would think on the rushing aspect. And Joe Matz gave an incredible stat, especially with now the news that Mike Evans is returning this week. Deep passes down the right side, Giants rank dead last in the NFL against the defending them. Deep passes to the left side, Giants rate dead last versus them. Deep passes over the middle, they rank 29th versus them. So I would be shocked if Mike Evans doesn't have at least 1 big play. Not to mention, I know it's important to him because he's talked about it before. He's got to really get it going down the stretch to keep his 1,000-yard season streak going. I think he has 340 yards coming into this week, but has just enough games that if he can average like right at 100 yards, he's going to eclipse that number again. So I love Baker. He's one of my most played guys in DFS this week. And I think that the Bucs are going to be able to get a lot of offense versus Giants. I just worry, again, the weather's supposed to be really bad for that Seahawks-Arizona game. I think it may end up being kind of a slugfest, where the Giants-Bucs game, you could see some points. And I think DeVito might actually be able to surprise people, especially, again, with Tracy and his ability. I think the Giants are going to be able to run on the Bucs.
All right. And he has one more question. 1 running back, and this is gross. Cam Akers, Amir Abdullah, Dylan Labbe, Gus Bus, or Raheem Mostert? So
For me, it's Abdul. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, exactly. That's where I was going with it. As gross as this sounds, it's Amir Abdullah just based off of volume because no Zamir White, no Alexander Madison. Although Madison is doubtful. They haven't totally ruled him out yet, but I think it's trending in that direction.
I'll report. Yeah, show he's not going to play.
Yeah, it's Abdullah for me. Same for you, Keith.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a guy that you know is going to get a majority of the carries, and what I really like about it is he's going to at worst be taking the Madison role, which we've seen. That's a lot of receptions and receiving yards. So I don't know. I'm assuming, Dylan, this is a PPR. Like he, again, is a guy for DraftKings. I think he's like 4,300 this week that if you're looking for somebody cheap, I think can easily get like 10, 15 points in a PPR format. It would be Abdullah. And we've seen this with these backs. They don't even really have to do anything. I mean, 5 catches for 30 yards is that's 8 points right there. So I do like him. I also expect the Raiders to be down, which that's good for him because Dylan Lobb is not done what a lot of people had hoped in Vegas when given opportunities. He's been, ruled inactive for a bunch of games. So I think he's going to be involved, but overall it's going to be Abdullah, Gus Bus versus, the Ravens. No, thank you. Mostert is now basically the third back. So, the only person that leaves is Akers. And for whatever reason, Aaron Jones, when the Vikings really need him in these big games, seems to always show out. And then it seems to be like when he has the really juicy matchups, that's when he does nothing.
100% agree there. Let's bring David Ibrahim into the studio. What's up, David?
What's going on, fellas? I was hearing you talking about Mike Evans. That scares me. That scares me, more than the boogeyman, guys. I'm not playing him. I'm actually playing TJ Hawkinson in one league in my flex over him. I just think if they're up, which I expect them to be, they're not going to risk him. We've seen hamstring injuries really hold people back. And to be honest, typically they don't take 3 weeks. Typically they take 4, 5, 6. So I don't think he plays much. I think he's on a snap count. I think if they have a 2-touchdown lead, I think he's going to be seeing the sideline. So that's my risk.
Technically, though, has been 4 weeks because they had their bye too. So
technically. But I just think they're not going to risk their stud on a game that they should win with ease.
I mean, that's a fair point, but at the same time, it's one of those where it's like, he doesn't need much to make himself be a fantasy, superstar. He just needs, a couple of receptions here in a PPR and a deep long pass, which the Giants cannot stop, and then shut him down. So even on limited snaps, he's really efficient. But I hear you. I can definitely understand the concern there. Speaking of concern,
I do love TJ Hawkinson today. Like if I had an option like that, I can see it. Josh Oliver is out today, which is huge for Hawkinson. He's going to kind of be forced to play more snaps than what I think they had kind of intended to do. And let's be honest, like the only way you can really throw against the Bears with consistency is 2 tight ends and running backs because they're so good versus wide receivers. So I do really like the Hawkinson play, but otherwise, like for Evans, I mean, I'm rolling him out in the leagues I have him. I kind of have to though.
Yeah.
Let's go to now Jerry. Jerry, good morning. Cade Otton or Jonnu Smith. Man, Jonnu Smith has been getting involved in this offense, but for me, I'm still leading Otton because of anticipating the reduced snap percentage for Mike Evans, and that'll kind of keep Otton still a little bit more viable going forward. David, let's ask your opinion. What do you think here in terms of that?
I hate being that guy, but it was one big play. He ripped off a big 70-yard touchdown or something at the end of the game in garbage time. If he didn't do that, we're not talking about Jonnu Smith, this week, right? It's got to be Otton. I mean, he's Baker's number 2 guy now that Mike Evans is there, right? So I'm betting on Otton, to be honest.
What about you, Keith?
I mean, as always being the wild card. I like Jonnu Smith. If you look at what Otton's involvement is, I think he's going to be the one most affected by Evans coming back. Rashad White has actually been the guy that's been taking a lot of kind of the Godwin type passes. Otton overall, except for the Atlanta game, has kind of been a more down the field attack. And I mean, Jonnu Smith has actually became a real part of this offense. Early in the season, he was not playing more than 60% of the snaps. They took that away basically when Tua's returned. And I mean, just over what's this? Going back his last 6, 5 receptions, 7 receptions, 4 receptions, 5 receptions, 3 receptions, 6 receptions, double-digit points in 3 of 6, 9.6 points or more in 4 of 6. I think he's actually the safer play in what I think is going to be a pretty competitive game, to where I do have the concerns, obviously, with the Bucs, like what Dave was talking about, and you were as well, Jorge, them getting up, and it's a lot of Bucky Irving, a lot of Rashad White, kind of in the second half.
All right. The worst, who is the best, has a question here, and this one's interesting because we're dealing with 2 rookies in this situation here. Jonathan Brooks in his first game or Trey Benson. So for me, it's one of those things where it's like, man, you've been holding on to Jonathan Brooks for so long, and we know his prowess in the passing game, right? And now he's finally going to get some playing time. We don't know whether he's going to be limited in snaps. I didn't hear what Dave Canales had to say about that. Or you get, Trey Benson, who is the backup. Man, am I crazy for saying Jonathan Brooks just because of the PPR upside if it is a PPR league, Keith?
I don't think you're crazy. I like to go with what I know versus the unknown. And what we know is Benson's snaps have gone up. The last 2 weeks, he's slowly eating into Connor's work. We're at 27% 2 weeks ago, 28% last week. I just don't know what Brooks, what the plan is for them. If I could be guaranteed he's going to get, say, just 10 opportunities, I would rather play Brooks because they're going to be down and it's probably going to be pass catching opportunities. Again, with the weather and the fact that in the Seattle-Arizona game and the fact that, again, Benson's kind of eating into it, I would lean Benson just because I know what, at least I'm going to get from him. And if you get lucky and say the rain is really bad with Benson, like Joe gave another great stat on the Daily Fix last night or Friday night that Connor, when it is within 1 to 7 points either direction, is playing 85% of the snaps. The minute the Cardinals get up 8 points or more, that goes down to 55%. So if that game gets out of hand and with the weather, you could see a lot of, Benson obviously on the ground. And not to mention, obviously, the other big bugaboo is that the Chiefs are arguably the best defense versus running backs in the NFL. So I would lean Benson, but I mean, again, to your point about if you had Brooks and you've held this long, I have no problem with somebody playing him.
What about you, Dave? If you're in a must-win situation here, keep your playoff hopes alive, who would you roll with?
If I'm in must-win, I'm going to roll the dice with Brooks because the upside is there. If you're in I need upside, look, he's probably your flex, right? So he's probably not hopefully he's not your running back 1 or 2. But Brooks, I'm going with him at the flex. I'm taking that risk because I need the win. I'm hoping that they give him the rock and see what they got in him. They've waited this long to roll him out. And, I mean, let's be honest, they're in a must-win situation too as a team. So I think they go with Brooks and see what they got.
All right. Got Keybro. I believe this is the first time Keybrow, excuse me. What is your
I like Keybro better, to be honest, but whatever.
That's his icon is full of blue liquids, and I like the color blue and blue liquids. So if that is some type of moonshine.
Did you draw the duck blue because you'd never seen a blue duck and you always want to know what blue duck look like?
Will Disley, tight end.
People may not get that reference.
I know, right? Billy Madison. That movie's 30 years old, Grandpa.
Yeah. I know. The younger people might be like, what's he talking about? This guy likes blue ducks. You see they're making what's the...
Oh, the Happy Gilmore 2.
Happy Gilmore 2.
I'm so excited. I know I'm going to be disappointed, but I'm so excited. Yeah, it's in production for Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
I don't know if I want it to be honest. Part of me wants to, but the other part of me is like, are you messing with a classic? I mean, that was the perfect example is Anchorman. Anchorman was fantastic. They kind of ruined it with 2 and 3. But
first of all, I did mine too. I did not know that there was a 3. That is even
terrible.
more concerning. Okay, yeah. Keybrow wants to know: Will Disley of the Chargers or Austin Eckler at flex? and I'm sure we'll get into this later on with questions, but like Dallas and Washington are sieves at the running back position, but I think that screams more to Brian Robinson getting more of the workload there for Washington. So Baltimore, I want to say, is they're 10th in tight ends in fantasy points per game allowed. I think I'd go Disley here. Let's start with David this time. David, who would you go with, Will Disley or Austin Eckler?
If it's full PPR, I'm slightly leaning towards Eckler just because he's getting a lot of the catching work. I mean, I think he's averaging over 40 yards a game and 3 to 4 catches, right? So his baseline is safe. But once again, if you're in a must-win, I think Disley might be the play. But if I'm looking for safe, I'm looking for 10 to 15 points baseline, I'm okay with Eckler.
All right. We got Nico in the chat.
I lean Eckler too.
Alrighty. Ray Gamer. Vikings defense versus the Bears, or Broncos defense versus the Raiders. For me, it is the Broncos versus the Raiders. We saw a little glimpse, now that Waldron is out of Chicago as the offensive coordinator, of the Bears being able to pass the ball a lot more. We saw Rome Odunze leading the team in targets. There was hope for Chicago Bears fans in terms of what the offense can do. But don't get me wrong, the defense for the Vikings is legit. They blitz a lot. It is a very difficult situation. The offensive line for the Bears is, again, a sieve. But if I had to bet on which team, the Raiders or the Bears, would get more of a passing attack going, it'd be the Bears. So I'm leading Broncos defense in this situation. All right. Unless you guys have a different opinion.
I mean, the Bears have imploded harder than that the Titan trying to find the Titanic, right? So they've had some terrible games, and they're not putting up points. So to be honest, I'm actually leaning, the other way. But anyway,
all right.
I'm thinking Vikings.
All right. You want to be the tiebreaker here, Keith? You want to pick the tiebreaker, Vikings defense or Broncos defense?
I mean, I lean Broncos only because like the Vikings earlier this year, and I think they still actually lead the NFL in sacks, but the Broncos have way more sacks in the last few weeks. And I just think it's more likely that the Raiders get in a situation where they're just forced to throw, and Gardner Minshew throwing a lot is a very good situation. Because my concern is about the Vikings D is just that I think that's going to be a game that's low scoring, a lot of running, because I don't think Sam Darnold and the Vikings are going to be able to really move the ball either on the Bears defense, to where I think the Broncos are going to get up. And then, that's usually the best case scenario for a pick six or, strip fumble sack, etc. So I lean slightly Broncos, but I love both of those defenses. So neither are bad options.
Now let's get Colby Conway on the show. Colby, welcome back. How you doing, man?
What's going on?
All right. Doing well, man. You have a good weekend so far? Everything?
Absolutely. Ready for a beat down of the Titans today. That's what I am looking forward to.
There you go. Gotta love that Tank Dell, right? Rachel in the chat has a question.
It's Nico Bully Day. Come on now. Let's not get carried away. This is my Nico day. Got him in every DK lineup, so I need him to go bananas.
I was playing against Nico last week, and when that first touchdown went in, my week was over. I was like, oh no, that saved me. Those crappy refs. That was definitely a touchdown. I don't know what they're called.
Yeah.
I know.
Agreed.
So was the Alabama one last night. Good God, that was awful.
No, Colby knows what I'm talking about. I give him crap about Tank Dell every week just because he's super efficient, yet doesn't produce for fantasy. But I'm neither here nor there. Want to get into that Nick Westbrook-Akine. Anyhow, Rachel needs one IDP. She needs Brian Burns, Josh Metellus, or Christian Rosenboom. I'm assuming this is a balanced IDP scoring league where you're not getting 5 to 6 points per sack, but maybe you are. And if you could let me know, that would be fantastic. But let's assume it's a balanced one. I always go for my linebackers and linebacker upside. And then I would go even if it's a balanced league, I may lean Brian Burns because, again, Tristan Wirfs should be out. Or if he was not declared out, he will be declared out this morning. And you got a stud edge rusher going against backups. The big play upside is there, and then I would go Josh Vitellis third. So hopefully that answers that question. Charlene, good morning to you. Welcome to the show. Welcome back. We got Kyle Singer. Got a question. Pick one, Tua or Jordan Love. Let me tell you, Jordan Love's matchups versus the wide receiver matchups versus the San Francisco 49ers are not exactly cakewalks. It's actually the Niners are actually pretty good against playing in coverage versus wide receivers. Conversely, the Packers are horrible at defending wide receivers, which if Brock Purdy was there, I believe Purdy would have carved them up this game, but obviously Brock Purdy is out. So I think I want to go Tua just because we saw him finally get in sync last week. The past couple of weeks, he's been kind of like working towards that. And I think that's where I'm going with Tua. Colby, let's ask you.
I'm going to go Tua. I just think Green Bay is going to play from ahead in this game. I think they win, and when they do, they get pretty run heavy. So for me, I just don't think volume is necessarily going to be there for Jordan Love. And the thing is, he can be scary, efficient, 18 completions and throw 3 touchdowns. I just don't see it happening today. I think it's bigger Josh Jacobs than Jordan Love day, so I'll take Tua.
David, your thoughts?
Pretty even, but I'm going with Love. Jordan Love reminds me of 2019 and 2020 Jameis Winston, who, you start every single game with 2 picks, and you're like, you know what, I'm not worried. I know it's going to end with 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. I just feel like the upside is there with Love. He's airing the ball out a bit more. So it's pretty even, but I'm leaning towards the Love side.
And Keith, your thoughts on here, Tua or Love in this matchup, in these matchups?
I really like Tua this week. I just him and A-Chain together, like most of the damage is done in the passing game. I mean, come on, we know that a big Tyreek game has got to be coming. It's a good chance this week against the New England secondary that outside of Christian Gonzalez gives up big plays everywhere. I think, with Janu Smith and everything, I think this Miami offense is really good, and they, with a win today, are back kind of in that playoff hunt for that 7th seed. They got a pretty manageable schedule coming up. I think Tua and the Dolphins are going to roll today.
Kyle, we appreciate this. He says he's loved us for a long time. He smashed that like button. Appreciate you. For those who are over on YouTube, smash that like button. If you're on Facebook or X watching this show, hit that follow button. We definitely appreciate your support.
You don't have to smash it, do you? Can you just push it, or do you have to smash it?
I mean, maybe he needs to take out some aggression. It's been a rough fantasy season, but whatever.
Are we on Instagram Live, by the way?
We are not on Instagram Live today.
Someone asked me that the other day. I was telling them about the podcast. They're like, what's your Instagram Live thing? But I was like, oh, no.
It's good to know that there is demand for Instagram Live. So we tried that a couple of weeks ago and just wasn't getting the return back. But if people want to watch us on Instagram Live, I can make that happen. All right. Let's see here. We got Dan B2387. I hope that's not like a PIN code for your ATM card because he says he needs to start 2 flex spots.
Ask him what his mother's maiden name is.
Is it a droid? Is the offspring of R2D2 and C3PO?
And his first pet. The name of it. So
there you go. We kid, Dan. Half PPR scoring. Need 2 at 2 flex spots. Xavier Legette, Amir Abdullah, Trey Benson, Tucker Kraft, or DeMario Douglas. He adds the caveat, I would have to drop one of those in order to add and start DeMario Douglas. So start with Colby and Dave last time. Keith, let's go back up to you. What are your thoughts here in this matchup for half PPR scoring?
Legette for me, I think would be the must start out of this group. I don't know who your other tight end is, but my second answer would probably be also DeMario Douglas. I do like Abdullah today just because of the pass catching upside. I expect the Raiders to be down, and you got to assume he's going to be on the field a lot with both of the Raiders' backs out. But I would either go Legette Abdullah if you don't want to drop anyone, or I would go Legette Douglas and probably drop Kraft because there's he's been really outside of those two big games, pretty disappointing week to week.
Colby?
I'll give a vote of confidence to Abdullah just because Denver's allowed the most receiving yards to backs over the last 4 weeks, 5th most for the year as a whole. I don't love it, to be
Ooh, I
honest.
like that stat, bro.
It's just, yeah, but it's ugly. I mean, this is a rough one.
Oh,
I
it's
think.
ugly, but it's an ugly question,
Yeah, I mean, Legette's going to
Armageddon,
play.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think I would go. I always get Douglas wrong, which is why I'm always hesitant to say start him or not. I never get him right. I'd probably go Legette and Abdullah just because I'm afraid to get Douglas wrong.
Yeah, I agree with Leggett and Abdullah. Let's go into next question here from Evan. Half PPR, flex help, Wandale, Romeo Dubs, Amir Abdullah. Even with Tommy DeVito last year, there was still a rapport with Wandale Robinson. He had actually a surprisingly a pretty decent completion percentage for short to intermediate passes. So I think even in a half PPR, those half receptions will add up today versus Tampa Bay, which should jump out to an early lead. Game narrative. Okay, the Giants want to kind of, play hero ball and catch up to the Buccaneers as best as possible, which lends itself to Wandale. David, what are your thoughts here? Who would you start in your flex? Wandale, Romeo Dubs, or Amir Abdullah?
What are we doing still talking about Amir Abdullah, man? Come on. Is this 2017? We got to get rid of this guy.
He's the only running back left for the Vegas Raiders.
I know. That doesn't mean anything, though. I mean, we weren't starting Zamir White when they were, at the start of the year, let alone Amir Abdullah, who has had 8 years to prove in the league and has done nothing. So I'm not.
You can say the same thing about Alexander Madison, though. And Madison, in the same role on a bad Raiders team who's a pass catching back, had a lot of very viable fantasy games. Like, it's not fun, but I mean, it is a viable option this week if you expect them to get beat. So, I know what you're saying.
If you're in, if you're in a must win and you need points, I'm taking the risk with Dobbs because you know that he's got the potential for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the potential. Amir Abdullah, I mean, maybe you're getting 50 yards and he falls in the end zone. If you're looking for safety, fair enough, go with Abdullah. But big play, big upside, give me Dobbs all day. Wandale, look, I like the talent. We just don't know what we have in, Danny DeVito throwing the ball out there. So who knows?
What about you, Colby?
If it was PPR, I'd say Wandale, just because his inability to go more than 5 yards downfield pairs up nicely with Tommy DeVito's tendency to only want to throw it about 5 yards downfield. But half PPR, I think you chase touchdown. I kind of agree with David. I really like this. Just feels like a Dobbs week, and the reason I say that is because I don't know which Green Bay receiver it's going to be. And that's when Dobbs tends to kind of surprise you. And don't get me wrong, it could be like a 3 for 28 and a touchdown. That might be what it comes out to. But I think
Dobbs' floor is 0. Don't get me wrong. His floor is 0, but his upside is huge.
I will say, so Isaac Adams, wow, that's horrible, for the 49ers is a liability. At defensive back, I kind of, if I had to pick one, which is not this question, I kind of think Christian Watson is in for a big game. But if not him, definitely Romeo Dubs here. So I can see that. Keith, this question is poured out to you. Tough question. Do you risk waiting on McConkey or do you play Neighbors this week? I know what I want to do. I want to risk McConkey, but are you going Neighbors just out of safety? Because again, he's playing tomorrow night. McConkey, that is.
It depends on what, how you feel. Let's put it that way. Like if you think you need a monster game, Lad versus the Ravens has the potential to be like outrageous. I know obviously we should say Neighbors does as well, but like Neighbors needs somebody to push the ball down the field. I feel like to be that elite receiver. To your point, like about Wandale Robinson, I want to remind people that Green Bay upset last year. He scored 18 points, caught 7 passes for 79 yards with Tommy DeVito at quarterback because he can't throw it down the field. That's why I like Tracy today, and I do like Wandale Robinson as an option. To me, I think I would though have to play Neighbors, like especially if a playoff spot's on the line. I just hate leaving it up to fate because this happened like recent. Oh, it was Nico the week before, where everybody, right? Wasn't it 2 weeks ago that everybody said Nico was going to come back? I waited, and then they scratched him like right before the game, and it literally cost me a game where I lost by 4 points. And now it looks like I'm going to miss playoffs in that league. So I don't want that to happen to you, Charlotte. So if a playoff spot is on the line, I would play Neighbors. But if you're okay, like, and feel still pretty confident, like Lad, I think is the much better play this week. And a game that I think both of those teams are actually going to be able to throw and move the ball, because I think the Chargers will have issues with Lamar's rushing.
All right. Let's go to Charlene's second question. All right.
Chargers are running. They're hotter than Megan Fox in her prime, man. I'm taking the risk with McConkey. Like, McConkey is he's very Julian Edelman-esque. Like, I see Julian Edelman when I see McConkey.
Oh, don't disrespect my boy like that. He's way better than Julian Edelman. Edelman can't do stuff down the field that Lad McConkey.
Edelman was getting 8 catches for 95 yards and likely a touchdown every game. That is Lad. I mean, Lad is everything. He can run the deep routes, but he's in on every single route. So I'd rather just risk it and wait for McConkey, but that's me.
Sorry to all the Megan Fox stands out there. We should. David did not mean that. Charlene Erickson wants to know, a second question for her. Need 3 IDPs. Aziz Ojulari, Vita Vea, Zach Allen. So you got 2 interior linemen right there, 3 interior linemen for Dallas, Odigizua, and then Kyle Van Noy.
Wait, how do you say that again? We were going to have fun. I was going to say, let me try to pronounce Odigizua. Yeah, okay. This is why I can't do defenses. This is insane. Look at just these names right here.
It must be mandatory to they must change their names,
right?
Like you know what?
It's insane.
I'm going to be a linebacker. Just add a bunch of. They must just hit the keyboard and go whatever.
The announcer's never going to be able to say your name over and over again if you take carries as the running back or passes as the quarterback. So you're going to play defense, man. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm sorry, Jorge.
No, you're good. So Zach Allen kind of concerns me because he is questionable. He's been dealing with an injury this week. He's been limited in practice. They have not ruled him out. It doesn't seem like they're going to rule him out, but something to pay attention to. I like Kyle Van Noy in this matchup. Ojulari, man, again, it goes back to the whole, do the Buccaneers get conservative and therefore Baker doesn't have to stand in the pocket for too long? They just dump the ball off and to Rashad White, and therefore you negate the pass rush of Ojulari. Vita Vea is a space eater. I don't know if he's necessarily an IDP person. So if I had to pick 3, I do actually like Odigizua this week because Washington should be playing Brian Robinson. God damn it, Keith. Trying to hold a straight face here. Odigizua versus Washington. So I would go him, Van Noy, and Zach Allen. So Zach Allen, so the last 3, Zach Allen, Odigizua, and Van Noy. Thank you for the question. Let's go to our next one, shall we? Let me scroll up here. Here we go. Ken Charles. What's up, Ken? Good morning. Theo Johnson or Shoemaker, new quarterback scares me. Scares me too, which is why I'm going Shoemaker in this situation. Anybody disagree with that? Colby? Keith? No?
Shoemaker all the way.
Huge DK value if you're doing DraftKings this week, 2,500. I mean, he saw like 10 targets last week with Ferguson on the field. You can't get that kind of volume for 2,500. So don't be afraid to put him in some lineups.
All right. We got the next question here from Daniel Caps. Bo Nix or Kyler Murray? For me, it's kind of an easy question here, especially with the weather that, Keith, you've been talking about in this matchup here. It's the leading candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and this pains me being a Commanders.
Brock Bowers, excuse me, is the Offensive Rookie of the Year, just FYI.
Offense.
Okay. Yes. Okay. But okay. You are not wrong. Do they normally give that award to any skill player? Rarely. It's always the quarterbacks that get the love, which I disagree with, but you have a very good point there, Keith. But anyhow, Bo Nix for me over Kyler Murray this week. Anybody disagree with that play?
Taking a big L on Bo Nix. Dude's really good. And if he is available, which I've actually seen he still is in some fantasy leagues, go pick him up. he actually still has a pretty good schedule down the stretch as well. So, Bo Nix, boy, big L for your boy.
All right, here we go. Next question from Joe. Hi, guys. Deciding between Tyrone Tracy and McConkey in full PPR, leaning McConkey, just not so sure with his injury designation. Full PPR, it's McConkey. I mean, we've seen, and Keith, you've talked about this numerous times, whether it's on the Daily Fix or whether it's on the Waiver Wire show on Tuesdays. Daily Fix you can catch on Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Ever since Justin Herbert has come back from that ankle injury, was it? In week 5, he has just been just an amazing quarterback for fantasy purposes as well as for the NFL. We even saw last week his scrambling upside. He's scrambling a lot more than I think he's ever scrambled before as a quarterback in the NFL. And we know Lamb McConkey has been the primary beneficiary for Justin Herbert. So for me, I don't care about injury designation. It's McConkey. What about you, Colby?
Yeah, McConkey didn't practice Thursday, but when you play Monday, we're more looking at that Friday. He was limited both Friday and Saturday, so I think he's going to be fine. I think you run out there. We've attacked wide receiver against Baltimore all year long. Can't stop now with an incredibly impressive player that McConkey is. So I'm rolling out McConkey.
What about you, Keith, Sam?
I do want to ask Joe, who is your other running backs? Because I really do like Tyrone Tracy. I would have Lab McConkey over him, but again, I said earlier, I like Tracy over Jonathan Taylor today if it's like a full PPR or half PPR because, again, of the receiving upside. The Bucs allow third most receptions and most receiving yards to opposing running backs. Tyrone Tracy, again, converted to a wide receiver. They also can't stop the run, and I think the Giants are going to lean on him. So depending on who your other running backs are, I might try to get him in your lineup, but I do agree in this question – and Lad, we trust, as I was trying to tell everybody since last February.
Okay. Let's go to, is that Ski Socks 80? Sure, let's go with that. Okay, so this is a popular question we've been getting this morning. Tua versus New England or Kyler versus Seattle? And I think a lot of us said Tua last time, if memory serves me correctly. Does anybody's, has their mind been changed? Dave, what are your thoughts here?
I'm going to go Kyler. For some reason, the Dolphins-Patriots games end up being real competitive historically, and they'll either be 10 points versus 7 or 34-28 or something like that. I think the safer play is Kyler. I'm leaning Kyler just because the history of the Pats and the Dolphins. I think it's a interdivision rivalry. I'm staying away from it.
Keith and Colby, what are your thoughts here real quick?
I'll go Tua. If you take the rain out of the equation, I would go Kyler, but I'm going to go Tua. New England likes to play man coverage, and I am all in on a massive Tyreek Hill day, and that can't happen without Tua. So give me Tua.
All right. Got Gerard in the chat.
Kyler. A-Chain, 13 points per game just in the passing game in the starts with Tua. 39 receptions in the 6 Tua starts. He has 9 in the 4 games that Tua has not. I think you're going to see, again, a lot of Tyreek, a lot of A-Chain. That's good for Tua.
All right, he's got Gerard has a couple questions here. Kyler or Nix at QB? I think all of us were in consensus for Nix. So we'll go there. At wide receiver and flex, he needs 2 now. Josh Downs, Calvin Ridley, Juwan Jennings, Rashad White. And again, I go back to this. If Brock Purdy was the quarterback this week, Juwan Jennings would have another monster week, as would a lot of the wide receivers here, receiving options for the San Francisco 49ers. That's not the case. For me, that kind of takes him out of the equation here. So it really comes down to Rashad White, Calvin Ridley, or Josh Downs. The Texans, I want to say, allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position, which is why I probably will say X out Ridley and leave Downs and Rashad White. I do want to bring up, though, Josh Downs. You see online and you hear a lot of people talk about it. He has been zeroed in as the go-to wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts out of the slot. And he will be going against Amik Robinson, who is the slot cornerback for the Detroit Lions, who on the season has not played great. Which, when you look at his metrics since week 8, he has only allowed an NFL quarterback rating when targeting a wide receiver with a quarterback rating of 81.9. So that's not exactly good for Josh Downs in terms of Anthony Richardson being able to get easy completions for him, which is my only concern. But again, when facing cover 3, which the Detroit Lions like to run a lot, Josh Downs leads the team in first read percentage. In terms of for the entire NFL since that time period, he is the 4th best slot wide receiver in fantasy points per game. So it's kind of hard to fade him. But I may temper a little bit of the expectation for upside. So it goes Downs and Rashad White.
Let me make you feel a little better, Jorge. Those games included the Titans, no slot receiver, the Texans without Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins, and the Jaguars without Christian Kirk. So it looks better, but they haven't been playing any receiver. Josh Downs is going to freaking feast. Lions, I think, are missing 2 corners too, right, for this game as well. I think it's a great opportunity for the pass catchers. And I do just want to say on the Jennings things real quick, like, yes, it's risky, but it's the 41.3% first read target share that he's had this year that to me makes him still very intriguing, because one of the battles in San Francisco, and I only know this because a good buddy of mine who hosts the ESPN show is a huge Niners fan, is Shanahan and Purdy, right? Where Shanahan wants Purdy to run plays his way, hit his reads, etc. And Purdy has improvised and done a lot of things, held onto the ball, etc., that Shanahan doesn't want. From all reports, Allen is the kind of guy that's going to do exactly what Shanahan wants, where it's going to be a 3-step drop, get rid of the ball, 5-step drop, get rid of the ball. He's going to go to his first read target, etc. That could end up actually being good for Jennings because he has been so much of the first read option anyway, that if Allen can just be competent, which we've seen Shanahan have success with these other QBs, I think Jennings could end up still having a good game. I agree with like the answers here. I just want to say, though, I'm not as down on Jennings. It's like I know you and a lot of other people seem to be, which is fair, again, because who knows what we're getting with Allen. But we've seen Shanahan kind of have success because he's so good at game planning and scripting up plays and stuff. I still think Jennings is going to be involved a good bit.
I agree with the Downs thing. I mean, I think he's got upside to potentially be the one. I mean, who's his competition? You know, realistically, Michael Pittman has done a bigger disappearing act than Malaysia Flight 370. It's really his. He's the number one guy there. I just think he's the kind of dude who, if he got 200 yards and 3 tutties, I'd believe it.
I don't know who's been the more offensive person here at Fantasy and Frames this past week. Stacy on the Waiver Wire show or Dave right now on the Kickoff show. Either way, both have been hilarious.
I'm pretty sure Dave there with a plane that had like 300 people on it compared to, hating on Justin Tucker, who, by the way, will be on a milk carton if he keeps kicking the way he was. Stacy's not wrong. So
this is true. Colby, your thoughts here real quick.
Yeah, Detroit sucked against slot receivers all year long. Josh Downs has been Indy's best against man, which Detroit plays at, I believe, at the highest clip in the league. So it's all about Josh Downs. And then I think I'll go Juwan Jennings. I don't really love it. I wish it was Purdy because everything just says Jennings is just – he's still too cheap on DFS, especially if he had Brock Purdy under center. But I still think there's a way to play him. I'm scared to death to go with Calvin Ridley. He does have the big play ability, but Houston does get Kamari Lassiter back, and I just don't know how much time Will Levis is going to have because Will Anderson's also back. So Ridley scared me. So I guess I'd go Downs and Jennings.
All right, let's answer some questions that we have on Twitter over in the Fantasy and Frames account. First one we have in non-PPR, pick one: Dubs, Hunter Henry, or Laporta. Is Laporta back this week?
I believe
maybe
so.
In spirit, but he's definitely.
He's.
Are you trusting Laporta? I can't trust Laporta, man.
Oh no, I don't. I was the one telling people all summer, don't draft Sam Laporta. It's too many miles to feed in Detroit. Was the issue. I think he's a great tight end, but it's just, it's basically St. Brown, the 2 backs, and then whoever else gets the scraps is basically the way it is. It was Henry, Downs, Jorge?
No, Romeo Dubs, Hunter Henry, or Sam Laporta?
Henry for me.
Colby?
Same.
I like the safety of Henry, but I think the upside is there with Dobbs, as we've discussed before.
All right. Let me just put that in here so people don't accuse me of not putting in what everybody says. Let's see here. Dobbs. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next question here from Mr. CJR. Ramondre. Okay. So this is a couple questions here. running back question. Ramondre, Kyron Williams, or Tony Pollard, pick one. Keith.
You said Ramondre, just Ramondre or Tony Pollard?
So Ramondre, Kyron Williams, or Tony Pollard.
Oh, I can't sit Kyron. I know it's been rough, but with those three options, I just can't sit Kyron Williams. I would go Kyron Williams.
All right. Colby, you'll like this one. Picking one wide receiver. Calvin Ridley, Tank Dell, Josh Downs, Jacoby Myers.
Okay. Way to put it in a way that I can't pick the Texan. You can't not go with Josh Downs. As much as I want to go Tank Dell, you have to play Josh Downs.
All right, and we'll round this out with David. Tight end question: George Kittle or Jonnu Smith this week?
I mean, Kittle has just been on song all season. I can't sit Kittle. He's a must start.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you have Brock Bowers, I'm putting Kittle as my flex. So definitely Kittle.
All right. Let's get here to another question here from Thomas. Tomcat 625, half PPR. Which do I sit of these four? So sitting of these four: Hunt, Kareem Hunt, Aaron Jones, DK, or Terry?
Can't sit Kareem Hunt. We all agree that, right? Carolina, no Pacheco. That's a definite. I think Terry McLaurin with Diggs out is going to come back with a monster game. Really, you look like last week was an outlier. So then it comes down to those two guys. Do y'all agree that those two are kind of the safe ones, McLaurin and Hunt?
Is Pacheco definitely out? I thought he was possibility of starting this week.
No, they've already ruled him out. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, then Hunt. Agree.
I can't sit DK, to be honest. I go to that same. I saw the same tweet y'all did. None of us know how to say it. Datorama, whatever it is.
Great stuff, though. Yeah.
If they're going to play cover 3, it's DK. And even last week, I think he had like 9 targets last week. Had 7 for something, 70 maybe. So I can't sit DK. I hate sitting Aaron Jones because the matchup's really good because Chicago's actually allowed the 6th most over the last 4 weeks. And I don't know, Sam Darnold. I don't think it's a hot.
And it's better to run against them to the throw, right? Like
exactly.
DVOA wise.
This is a hard decision. I think if Diggs was playing, I could sit McLaurin, but I don't think you can sit him without Diggs playing. So I would add Metcalf into the safe ones there if it were me.
Okay, so
I'm good with that. Like Aaron Jones has also been the most inconsistent out of those guys, if we're being fair. Like just even in good matchups, he's had games with like 9 for 30. So I'm pretty good starting the other 3.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got one more question here from Paul Lenka 17 in a non-PPR: Debo or CD this week? David, let's start with you first.
Can you trust Cowboys? I don't know. I mean, look, Cooper Rush did a decent job last year. Was it last year or the year before where Dak was out the first few games?
It was last year.
It was last year, yeah. That's very close. Maybe I am slightly leaning towards CeeDee Lamb, to be honest, just because Cooper Rush has been serviceable. Yeah, it's a tricky one. You've got some pretty bad quarterback play out of both of them. Probably just leaning CeeDee Lamb, but not by a ton.
Colby?
CeeDee Lamb. If Cooper Rush is going to throw it 40-plus times again, volume makes up for any inefficiencies. So I'm going CeeDee Lamb.
Keith?
I agree. I do just want to, because it's more of a question to you guys. Like with Allen, playing, we know, again, Shanahan's so good at coming up with scripts, ways to, get, people involved, whatever. Is this the week we kind of unleash Debo? Because he hasn't been unleashed like with a lot of run carries and different designs of just get the ball to him in space. Because he's been one of the most disappointing players in fantasy when you look at what Jennings has done, what Kittle's done. I just wonder, do you think that they try to get him more involved in run? Because he has not done that basically at all this year, even with what surprised me, CMC, missing all that time where I thought that they would be giving him at least like 5-10 carries a game.
Yeah, I always get concerned because whenever I see Debo get a heavy volume as far as getting manufactured touchers as a running back, he takes a lot of punishment, and it's very, concerning, because then the next thing you know, he's out for a certain number of plays, or he's missing the next few weeks. And so I'm kind of concerned there. And then last week we saw the Cowboys just, manufacture touches again for CD, where they had him out of the backfield or on jet sweeps. And so they're finding ways to get him involved. So I'm going to agree with CD here. For those on X, if you still have more questions, drop them in the Fantasy and Frames chat, and we'll be happy to answer them. Heading back now to YouTube. Let's see here. Drew Markham, welcome. Good morning. Rest of season question. Which two would you rather have? Marvin Harrison, Breece Hall, or Nico and Tyrone Tracy? I like this question.
The latter. Nico Collins and Tyrone Tracy. Like Harrison, really? And this is one thing I hate about the weather. And because it like I'd have to look at the exact splits, but like for the rest of their season. But I was so excited about this matchup because Seattle plays a ton of man, but now it's raining. His target rate's like 44% versus man. Like almost all the damage he's done as a wide receiver has come versus man. The Jets, I just want to get away from. And like that's the issue, is like they're falling apart. They're talking about potentially cutting Aaron Rodgers. Like I don't know what's going to happen in the next few weeks, but I don't know if I want any part of it, to where Nico Collins is, I think, the best wide receiver in football right now when healthy, when paired with CJ Stroud. I think he's going to have a monster rest of the season. And then I think Tyrone Tracy is, probably like right on the edge of an RB1 rest of the season. So I would take that pair over, because Harrison and Hall have been very inconsistent, or Nico and Tracy, when they have played, have been very consistent. Like you can kind of count on those points.
There we go.
It's close, so I don't want to act like it's like a blowout or whatever.
I think I'm leaning towards the Breece Hall component. I understand the Jets are a dumpster fire, but that offense runs through Breece Hall, and he's getting 100+ scrimmage yards a game, and typically finding the end zone in some way, shape, or form. And look, Harrison has been inconsistent for sure, no doubt about that. But I mean, we've seen one game where he got 3 tutties, right? He is Kyler's number one guy, and the Cardinals right now have a legitimate chance to make playoffs. They're going to feed him the ball. But look, I think comparing the wide receivers, Collins is definitely the better wide receiver as a side-by-side.
Ironically, it's both New York teams that are probably going to be relying on their running backs a lot, given the inefficiencies in the passing game. So I think it does come down to the better wide receiver. So that's why I'm leading Nico in this situation.
They're both going to be trying to get a quarterback in the draft, is what they're going to be doing, because the Giants screwed that up last year. Remember beating both Washington and New England, and that was what allowed y'all to get Daniels and New England to get May. God.
We got Johnny Utah in Connecticut on X. Half PPR flex, and this is a 1-week rental player that he needs to have for this week. Half PPR flex. Wandale, Quentin Johnston, Darius Slayton, Rashad Bateman, or Roma Dunze. Colby, let's start with you.
It was easily going to be Quentin Johnston until you threw Rome in there. I wrote about a Dunze over on the website this week. Check it out in the Fantasy Football Laboratory over at fantasyandframes.com. So I think I'm actually going to go Rome. You can actually throw on, or you can get to Minnesota's corners a little bit, and Dunze is the most exciting Chicago receiver, and the way they're using him, he's also has the ability to be the most lucrative from a fantasy standpoint. So for me, it is Rome Dunze, and then just ahead of Quentin Johnston.
Keith?
Man, I knew Colby was smart. I also wrote this week on Fantasy and Frames about Roma Dunze, and I also think he is somebody that if he's out there, if you're saying like, this is available, go pick him up rest of the season. But he is first start with new OC Thomas Brown, very significant. It was the first game all season that he was the leading target wide receiver in a game that him, Allen, and Moore all played in the same game. He had 10 targets. That was also the second most targets he had seen this season. Also in that first game, he played over 80% of snaps for the first time since like week 3. And then this Vikings D, second most receptions per game allowed, third most yards per game, 8th most receiving touchdowns per game. And again, there's a reason I called Joe the Brain Mats. He brought this up on the Daily Fix Friday. Vikings are 27th or worse versus teams' number 1 wide receivers. teams number 2 wide receivers, teams number 3 wide receivers. So no matter where he lines up, he's going to have a good day. I love Rome Odunze. He's also one of my favorite plays on DK this week at 4,800.
All right. Let's go back here to the YouTube. Thank you very much for being patient. Folks, if we're not getting to your questions fast enough, and I know there are a lot here in the chat, you can also utilize the super chat function. One, we'd be very appreciative, so thank you, one, for that. 2, it'll prioritize your question that we will immediately drop what we're doing and answer it right away. So just keep that in mind as we keep going.
What's super
Basically, they make a donation to the Fantasy and Frames Fund, and we prioritize their question.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Indeed.
PPR. Ismail has been, ranking around.
Yes,
our boy.
Yes, he has. Thank you very much. We got Alex Flores in the YouTube chat. Goddard or Rome? Rome. I think that's consensus here. Everybody agree?
I don't know, guys. I'm going to have to, go against just because the Bears have been inconsistent. He's the 3rd best receiver on that team. I know his upside is monumental, but it's just tough to trust the Bears right now. That's my only reservation. If there was someone else at quarterback, yeah, but I just don't trust Caleb Williams. That's my only hesitation. I think the safer play for me is Goddard, but I see the upside of Rome. He obviously can go off.
I will say, no Devonta Smith this week, and the Rams allowing the 7th most fantasy points per game to the tight end position. You could sway me in that direction. I don't hate that as an option there. So thank you, Alex, for the question. Charlene with a doozy here. Vele for the Broncos or Kayshon Boutte for the New England Patriots? Colby, what do you think here?
Vele.
Okay. Keith.
Is it really Boutte? Or is it Bout? Is it Boutte or Bout?
I thought it was Boutte, but I'm a country bumpkin, so who knows? I'm a Vele guy too, especially in PPR. I know that it's just New England, man. It's so tough outside of Hunter Henry to figure out where they're going with their passes. Like, because, Colby talked about earlier with Pop Douglas. I've been in that boat too, where it's like, you're like, man, Douglas has, got this many targets for yourself, then you play him and he has like 2 receptions. So I would go Vele because he's just been a more consistent part week in and week out in the Denver offense.
All right, we got Mr. Scampers in the chat. Good morning, Mr. Scampers. Good morning, all. I'll be invoicing you for a new phone due to the like button smashing. Well, you know what? If you had to sacrifice your phone to like Fantasy and Frames, we're not gonna hate you on that. So we definitely appreciate you tuning in this morning. We got Ryan also in the YouTube chat. Good morning. Good morning to you. Starting Herbert. I'm assuming you mean tomorrow. But should I play Quentin Johnson in the flex or James Conner, Terry McLaurin, Tyrone Tracy, or Aaron Jones? David, let's start with you. Would you play QJ, James Conner, McLaurin, Tracy, or Jones?
I think I'm going with QJ. I love that Herbert to Johnston, mix. But he's the number 1 guy over there, right? I mean, he really is. I understand Disley got a touchdown last week, but Herbie is looking for Johnston as his number 1 option. So, I definitely like Johnston.
Keith, what are your thoughts here?
Man, I think I would lean either James Conner in the rain. Again, I just think that they're going to lean on him. What's going to be an ugly game, or I would go Terry McLaurin because again, I think with Diggs out, it's very likely he makes a big play. But I mean, again, what a roster! Like these people with these kind of rosters, you kind of make me sick. Like, how do you do this? I would take like half of these guys on all of my rosters. But that's the way I would lean. But these are the kind of good problems to have for sure.
And Colby, really quick before we get to Joe's question.
I'm going with Connor. Arizona has the 5th highest rush rate when leading, and I actually like Arizona to win this game, so I'm going to double down on that with Connor.
I'm right there with you with James Conner, although these are great options to have. Joe Bags utilizing Super Chat. Thank you very much, Joe. We appreciate you here at Fantasy and Frames. We appreciate all of y'all. Currently have Harrison Jr. and Jennings in the flex. Have Daddle and Abdullah on the bench. Some free agent options are Demario Douglas, Romeo Dubs, Keenan Allen, and Jordan Addison. I'm assuming we're thinking about the. Okay, so here are my thoughts. I think Dowdle is definitely a play this week, given how bad Washington is at stopping the run. Keith, I really liked your point about Jennings because of the first read target share that he's been having there and the competency that Kyle Shanahan has been having with quarterbacks over the years. Man, maybe I would put Dubs in for Abdullah.
No, I think what he's saying is that he
Abdullah's
has.
on the bench.
He's asking, should he flex out any of those guys? Because, personally, I can't sit Harrison Jr. and Jennings for any of those guys.
No.
Personally, I mean, if you have a feeling, obviously trust it. But again, with Jennings, just the first read target share, and Harrison Jr. Again, I know it's scary because of the weather, but a 44.8 target rate or target share. When facing man defense, Seattle runs it at 45% of the time. So that means 45% of the time he's going to be getting 44% of the targets. That's pretty good. This is where Harrison has just feasted is versus man defenses. Seattle runs it as much as anyone. I couldn't risk sitting him down because kind of what Dave was getting to. He has the potential, even in the rain, to have a 3-catch, 132 touchdown game. So I can't sit him. And then Jennings, just for volume alone, he's been the number one pass catcher anytime Ayuk or Samuel's out. We know Ayuk's done the rest of the year. I can't sit them for all those guys that have a lot of questions beside them. At least there's a really good reason for playing Harrison Jr. and Jennings, and I think they have higher upside than any of those guys.
Harrison Jr. is definitely the must start. It's just I could be sold on Dobbs over Jennings, but not by much. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Abdullah. I get excited about that as much as I do that disgusting yam thing you have it. What is this crap? You put marshmallows on yams?
Okay, first of all, that is sweet potato casserole. How dare you?
Sweet potato. It's disgusting, bro. You put marshmallows on potato.
This is coming from the person who likes Marmite. Okay, so
it's Vegemite. Marmite's British.
Excuse me. Colby, can you round us out Joe's question?
I am Harrison Jr. and Jennings as well. I don't feel good sitting either one of those two for any of those guys. So Harrison Jr. and Jennings.
All right, Joe, thank you very much. Seriously, we appreciate the donation. Glad we can help you.
How much of a disappointment has Keenan Allen been? I mean, I knew he was going to have a down year, but he went from being a top 5 wide receiver last year for the first 10, 11 games to nothing, to droppable.
Joe says, thanks guys. Just weather and Allen had me concerned. Let's get to Rome, the host. Start 3. Downs, Thielen, Eckler, Jennings, or McConkey. For me, it's Downs, Jennings, McConkey. Anybody have any disagreement here? Any cause for concern?
McConkey is he practiced Friday? You said right, Colby?
Yes, limited on the last 2 days practice.
Yeah, then Lab will get through it. He played in the SEC title game last year and was in awful shape. So if he practiced Friday, he's definitely going to go. So I agree.
And then David, what are your thoughts here?
I could be sold possibly Eckler over Jennings just for a safe baseline. If you're looking for a safe floor, one of those guys, I would go Eckler over Jennings, but the upside is same as you guys.
All right, let's get to a question here on X from FlyGuy_TJ0 has a tight end question. Doesn't say format, but let's just assume PPR. Jonnu, Hawkinson, or Hunter Henry. I like Hawkinson over Henry in this matchup, and then Jonnu. Keith, your thoughts here?
Yeah. Again, the Oliver being ruled out is huge. I was not very high on Hawkinson this week until that because he's only played about 45% of the snaps. You would just have to assume his snaps are going to go out of necessity. And again, this Bears secondary is as good as any secondary in the league. If the Vikings want to throw the ball, I think it's going to be a lot of Hawkinson. Like, I actually think you're going to see a lot of, run game, a lot of Hawkinson, a lot of Jefferson, and that's literally it. Because I think this is going to be a real slugfest between Chicago and Minnesota.
Colby, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would go Hawkinson, then Henry, then Jonnu.
Okay, consensus there, David. You on board for both?
Absolutely, 100%.
Alrighty, thank you very much and again, folks, if you can't get to the YouTube chat, drop these on Twitter. We'll answer your questions any way we can. Let's get to Mobbin. Wow, that was stupid, Jorge. My bad. Start one: DJ Moore versus Minnesota, Jaden Reed versus San Francisco, or JAMO versus Indy. And JAMO, we trust. I can't go against Jameson Williams. Anybody disagree with this?
I think it's a Jaden Reed game. The thing about Jameson Williams that scares me is the Colts play cover 3 all day, every day, and his zone man splits are really different. Like, yes, he has the potential. Trust me, because obviously, if they play zone 73% of the time, that's 27% of man, and he could have a 60, 70-yard touchdown pass anytime somebody lines up versus man. But he always scares me when it's a zone, because Amon-Ra St. Brown versus zone is unbelievable. Like, I expect him to get a lot of catches, them to do a lot of running. And then if Indy can't keep up, it's just how many opportunities. And I think they're going to really need Jaden Reed today versus San Francisco. He's their best wide receiver. I know he's been disappointing and up and down, but I would go Reed, then JAMO, then Moore.
I will say, for those who are interested in learning more about the different zone coverages, reach out to myself, Nate Markham, or Keith. He mentioned cover 3 right now. So the basic premise of cover 3 defenses is to help eliminate deep passes, but at the same time, you make yourself vulnerable to the short to intermediate. So that's a very good point. I think I'm going to switch off of JAMO, and I think I'm going to agree with you with Jaden Reed based off of that information right there. Colby, what are your thoughts?
JAMO and Reed are basically 1A, 1B, like up here, and then DJ Moore, like a distant third behind these three. So I don't love Jameson's man zone splits at all. And then he does play a lot of zone. I love the upside too much. And I do think this offense is humming. Sam Laporta's also back in the mix. But for me, JAMO and Reed are 1A, 1B. DJ Moore is not even in consideration for me. If I'm not mistaken, I think last week his ADOT was below 1 in the first game with Thomas Brown. I'm pretty sure it was 0.9. If I'm not mistaken,
bitching too. You're starting to hear grumbling from him. Like he's unhappy, which is never a good sign for DJ Moore if you follow him in Carolina.
Yep.
Well, and remember that time he walked off the field a couple weeks ago and just, you get the contract extension, and then all of a sudden this crap starts happening. This is not a good sign for the receiving core there in Chicago, unless you are a Roma Dunze fan.
That's why I like Roma Dunze.
Exactly. Let's go here to George C. in the chat on YouTube. Full PPR, Goddard or Jonnu? For me, I'm leaning Goddard just because no Devonta Smith and the Rams give up a lot of points to the tight end position.
Yeah, I love Jonnu Smith. You know that. I've talked about him, but Goddard, like with Devontae Smith out, the difference in his target rate, receptions and stuff, especially full PPR, like Goddard's a very good play.
Jonnu struggled against man too. Rams sit in a lot of cover 3, and guess who happens to lead all Eagles receivers in fantasy points per route run against cover 3?
Ooh.
Dallas Goedert. So I'm going Goddard over Jonnu.
And round us out, David.
Absolutely Goddard. I think the short to intermediary passes are all going his way. I'm not expecting him to put up massive numbers, but I'm expecting 5 to 6 catches at least for maybe 80 plus yards.
All right. Thank you very much, George, for the question. Jim R. here in the chat. Flex question: Kittle, Eckler, or Christian Watson? PPR. Pick one. I think I'm rolling Kittle, then Watson, then Eckler. Anybody disagree with the order or whoever they have first? Keith, we'll start with you.
Yeah, like Kittle for me is absolutely the number one. The Eckler Watson is just. If you want, I think Eckler may arguably be the safest play, believe it or not, out of the 3. with Watson obviously with huge upside, but I can't sit Kittle because Shanahan is going to scan up plays and Allen is going to throw the ball exactly where Shanahan wants him to this week. I think that means a lot of Kittle, a lot of Jennings, and he's going to get rid of the ball quickly. So, because you can't run on Green Bay like you used to. Used to you could just run down Green Bay's throat. They're not going to be able to beat them that way. They're going to have to throw the ball as well in order to get this W.
All right, let's go to Anthony in the YouTube chat. Full PPR, 2 questions, same league. First question, full PPR, Quentin Johnson or Jameson Williams? Colby, real quick, QJ or Jameson Williams?
I'll go Quentin Johnston.
All right. David, next up, same league, same question, a different question. J.K. Dobbins or Aaron Jones?
I've got a lot of stock of J.K. Dobbins. I'm a big fan of his. I mean, he looked fantastic last week. He can, find the end zone from 20, 30 yards out. So I'd much rather the play of Dobbins.
Personally, I do like Aaron Jones in this matchup just because he has the better fantasy points per game matchup versus the defense of the Bears than Dobbins has against Baltimore. Keith, could you help settle some information here?
Yeah, I mean, I would lean, and this is again because of kind of the Jameson cover 3 deal. I would go Quentin Johnston and then Aaron Jones. I think Jones and Dobbins is close. I just worry when you play 2 players on the same team in a game that, like, I know we say, oh, it's going to be high scoring. Do we really know that? That's also like the Chargers are a team that are not afraid to kind of like what Pittsburgh did last week. I think they would be okay with Baltimore being like, okay, let's get into a slugfest. Not a lot of up and down the field limit, the times that Lamar has the ball, et cetera. And I just think that that could end up meaning they don't score a lot of points, on either side. So I wouldn't want to go with both of them. So I would go Johnson and Jones because I think that, again, Minnesota, why would you go into Chicago and think we're going to throw it a bunch with Sam Darnold? That would be insane. Their objective, I think, is we're going to pound it with Jones and see if we can, steal a W.
Baltimore likes to sit in cover 3 too. I want to add this, Jorge. Do you guys know where, from Fantasy Points Data Suite, where Quentin Johnson ranks in fantasy points per route run against cover 3? If you had to guess.
Since I have that tab open.
Okay, well then you're excluded. Let me answer it. I'll beat you to it. He's second in the NFL in fantasy points per route run against cover 3, and actually double the fantasy points per route run of Jameson Williams against cover 3, which is Indy's primary setting or defensive alignment.
He is actually he's like Deebo Samuel 2.0 in so many ways. Like they figured out we're just going to basically make him Deebo. It's a lot of short stuff, design plays. And it's worked. And good for the Chargers. It shows how big coaching is, right? Because they knew that last year that he couldn't be the kind of receiver that they thought they were. They didn't adjust. Harbaugh comes in, immediately figures it out. And, I'm just happy for him because people were really crapping on him last year.
Well, he had a lot of drops last year, let's be honest. I mean, he could have had a much
They were
bigger
also
year.
put in a position that wasn't, the best for him. Like they're utilizing him this year so much better.
Yeah.
Real quick, guys, before we get to the next question, just going around the frames. Who's winning tomorrow night in the matchup, Baltimore and the Chargers? Colby, who you got winning?
Baltimore.
David?
I'm a closet Chargers fan, so I've actually got $200 on them to win the Super Bowl this year. So I'm absolutely going the Chargers.
And Keith?
Baltimore needs it so bad. I can't see them losing another big game without this going the other way, but I think it's very close either way. And I'm with Dave that I actually think the Chargers are now a legit contender in the AFC because they're the kind of team I think they can go on the road or home and play any of these teams and hang with them. They proved it again last week.
And I'm going to go with a Harbaugh. Get it? Because they're both Harbaughs playing tomorrow. Anyhow, whatever. Moving on. George C. Thanks, guys.
You're better than that.
Is he?
This is the material here. I got to step up my game, apparently. George C. says, thanks, guys. Your last question. Bonex, Jordan Love, Keith. Let's start with you. I'm Love first of all.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
No, it's Bonex. Just when in doubt, Bonex.
Okay, yeah. I just always rushing upside to me. Like in these QBs that are close, like I always want the guy that's going to potentially get, 30, 40 yards and a rush touchdown. That's Bo Nix. And he, in my opinion, has a much easier matchup. I know 49ers have had issues on defense, but they're not the Raiders.
Man, you can't sit Bo Nix right now. I mean, he's slinging that thing, harder than freaking Barry Bonds on roids. I think he's looking great. He's tough to bench. I mean, what did he throw last week? 350 yards, 3-4 touchdowns, plus 50 yards on the ground.
That's a great point too, Dave. And I'm sorry I meant to mention this. When he plays against teams that struggle with pressure, his PFF grade's 88. Against when he is being pressured, it's 40. That's the difference between the two of them. Falcons ranked 32nd. You saw what they did. The Raiders, I know we think, because they have one good player on their line, or it's like, oh, good pass rush. They're 25th. So it's going to be another week like last week where he's going to have time. And when he has time in a clean pocket, he has been excellent.
All right. And Colby, are you going team next year also?
100%.
Okay. Let's go to another question here on X. From the Broads boys, starting 3.5 PPR. So we're starting these. He has to start 3. Nico, Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf. Jesus Christ, man. Is this a work league? Is this another one of these things where this person is in a work league and just dominated the draft?
So Nico, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, and what?
So it's Nico, Mike Evans, CeeDee, DK, Jennings. Which 2 should he sit?
I'm sitting Mike Evans.
I would say Lamb for sure.
Yeah.
And then if you're okay with that, again, if you have that kind of roster, I don't know how much risk you have. And it does concern me again because the Giants are so bad versus downfield passing. But to me, Metcalf and Collins are automatic starts. Out of those two, especially with what Colby, just told us about, some of the cover 3 splits and other things. And then, to me, it's, potato between Evans and Jennings. If you want the safer play, I think it's Jennings. If you want the more upside, I think it's Evans.
Colby?
I'm definitely starting Collins, definitely starting Metcalf, and then I'm probably going to sit Jennings, and it's going to come down to Evans and Lamb for me. I'll go CeeDee Lamb.
Okay. All right. Awesome. We got another question here from Bob. Okay. Thanks. 1 Lions fan, 2. Pick 2 PPR. Malik Neighbors, AJ Brown, or Cooper Kupp, and Kittle or Disley. So he needs 1 tight end and 1 wide receiver. For the wide receiver, Neighbors, Brown, or Cooper Kupp. I would go AJ Brown in this situation. And then I would go George Kittle. Dave, who would you pick first of all? Neighbors, Brown, or Cooper Kupp?
So is it pick 1 or pick 2?
Pick 1 wide receiver and then pick 1 tight end.
I'm going Neighbors and Kittle. I still think even with a depleted Giants roster, I still think they're going to be looking for Neighbors. He's their one. He's their talent. The ball goes through him.
Colby?
AJ Brown, and then Kittle.
And then round us out, Keith.
I would go Kittle Kupp.
All right. I can spell. Yay. And I can type quickly. All right. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate your question here. Let's get back into the YouTube chat. Calvo, what's going on, Calvo? What's up, fellas? Debo or Tracy this week? PPR. Tracy for me. Quickly. Colby, you?
Tracy.
Keith. All right. Consensus Tracy. All right. Got the all-in-one show. Yep. What's going on? This is a flex question. I believe. Let's see here. So he has Goff, Gibbs, Jacobs, Puka, Jennings, Kelsey. Jesus, is this a work league? Come on, seriously. This is a great lineup here. Good luck. Oh my god.
No, this is actually believable. No, this is a roster you could have put together, definitely in the draft.
So this is the humble brag here of here. Goff, Gibbs, Jacobs, Puka, Jennings, Kelsey, Connor at flex. Good lineup for the week? No, it's horrible. It's horrible. Just kidding. Also, he says he has Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, Jalen Waddle, and Pacheco on the bench.
This is just a show-off post.
Yeah, I'd leave as is. I would leave as is.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm serious. That's one that could have been a 12 or 16 team league with that roster, because a lot of those guys were either free agent pickets or late drafts, etc.
All right, Jim R in the chat has Calvin Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins in PPR. That's a tough one.
I think the Chiefs come back and they look for Hopkins. I mean, he played fantastic 2 weeks ago, put up 2 tutties, and I think Mahomes finds his mojo and starts looking for his number one guy.
Yeah, it's the only issue is that his target share has been going down pretty consistently over the past 3 weeks since his big 2-touchdown game a couple weeks ago, which gives me concern. But the Ridley matchup versus the secondary of the Texans does scare me, but I think they may force feed Ridley more than they would DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm going to go Calvin Ridley. Colby, what are your thoughts?
I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Volume will make up for any inefficiency. Ridley could very well see 11 targets in this game. He may only catch 4. But if he catches those 4, he can do more. The only Kansas City Chief I've done in anything this week, whether it's DFS, whether it's my stuff over on Fantasy Spend, whether it's literally any app, I'm only looking at Kareem Hunt from that Kansas City game. It's the worst defense, and they don't even need to throw it. I don't know. Just Hopkins is just underwhelming at this point. And outside of that Tampa Bay game, he really hasn't done much from a fantasy perspective in Kansas City. So I'll take Calvin Ridley and hope for volume making up for any inefficiencies going up against Stingley, Lassiter, and company.
All right, let's get the G-Rod's question. Stroud versus the Titans or Tua versus New England? For me, it would be Tua in this matchup here. Just a lot of explosive plays on offense with Achan and Tyreek Hill. Colby, are you staying Team Texans or going, Team Dolphins?
All right, we're going to remove the homerism from it. When you get CJ Stroud at home against AFC South opponents, you play him. And you don't think twice. As bad as maybe not bad, as underwhelming as he has been this year, if you look at his game logs for this season, his 4 highest yardage outputs, all home games, 2 of which against divisional opponents. For his career at home, averages over 300 yards per game. When you look against the AFC South, averages 288 yards per game. 14-0 touchdown to interception ratio in his career against AFC South opponents. It's tougher to run on Tennessee than throw it. Nico's going to feast in this matchup, getting a more of a snap share here. Tua could be safer. I wouldn't necessarily fault you on that, but then also remove the stats from it. Houston hates Tennessee. Hannah McNair hates Tennessee. Don't be surprised if Houston uses this to get tuned up and get ready to go, because after this week, they get Jacksonville, they get the bye, and then they hit the gauntlet. They need to get CJ Stroud firing on all cylinders. This could be a game where they get up and they continue to throw. And look at last week. They were up 20 in that fourth quarter against Dallas. CJ Stroud continued to throw the ball all the way down to the red zone. They're trying to get him right. This could be the best fantasy game for Stroud this season. I wouldn't be surprised. So I'm going to chase the upside with Stroud.
Keith?
Co-sign absolutely everything Colby said, and I'm not a Texans fan. And then throw on top of that, who were the Titans' big off-season signing that was such a big deal? Cornerback Snead from the Chiefs. He was put on IR. So now you have one less reliable, actually I shouldn't say reliable, really good corner on the field. And I actually wrote about that in an article for Fantasy Six-Pack this week. It is insane the difference in the splits for Stroud and Collins at home compared to on the road. I have kind of one of our new rules that me and Joe have talked about is when Collins is under 8K and he's at home, I'm playing him in DFS. Same thing for Stroud. He's under 7K and he's at home, I'm going to play him. Both of them qualify for that this week. I love them. And I like Tua a lot, but I think Stroud, I think the Texans roll, and I do agree with it. They need to get right. They need to get Collins going. And it's a lot easier to throw by every metric on the Titans than it is to run on. So why make it, Work smarter, not harder.
Well, I think you also saw what happened with the Lions, and they lost that crazy lead. So I think they're going to go to the air, even if they've got a 24-point lead. I think they still sling that rock just because they don't want to repeat of what happened yesterday, right?
Keith, speaking of metrics, I want to address this question that All In One Show has said. Valid points on Bo Nix's performance against pressure and non-pressure, but man, PFF grades are so stupid. He was graded in the 80s while Caleb was rated in the 90s last week when Bo played way better. Here are my thoughts on that. There are a lot of metrics. There are a lot of efficiency metrics, productivity metrics that go into like just assigning which player we like. Yes, PFF grades, they can be wrong, just like any other metric can be wrong. But again, we're looking for trends here. And I think all of us can agree it's better to look at recent trends than whole season trends because you're seeing what's happening now, or at least getting a better picture of what's happening as the season progresses. So no, I don't think everybody here just says, oh, well, the PFF grade says it's green and that's better than yellow, so we're just going to go with that player. I think there's a lot more that goes into it, but
it was backed up last week too. That was the main reason that I used that stat. That was kind of the same numbers going into a Falcons game, a team that can't get pressure, they get no sacks, and then he had by far his best, game of the year. Like, it's not a perfect formula, obviously, but I'll go ahead and tell you, I look at that kind of stuff all the time, especially for like offensive versus defensive line matchups, etc. But all of it goes into the science of it, of coming up with DFS and fantasy football plays for me.
And he said, no, Jorge. Well, he's not saying this, but I'm going to speak for him. No, Jorge, you idiot. This was not a work league. He started off 0-4. Made a number of trades to make that team. He's now 6-5. Good for you. That's fantastic.
There's teams that it's like St. Brown, where it's like all these guys that are all like first, second round picks. I'm going, wait a minute, what's going on? He only had about 2 or 3 guys on that team that would have been like probably top first 4 round picks ADP this summer. So, yeah, good job, man.
And we got Bryce. Bryce Young wants to know George Kittle or Dallas Goedert this week.
Didn't we just have this?
No.
I can't sit Kittle. I like Goddard a lot, but I just can't sit Kittle.
Colby?
Co-signed.
David? All right. We got BT in the chat. Half PPR. Neighbors, McLaurin for me, especially with the deficiencies in the Cowboys secondary. David?
Neighbors. I'm going Neighbors, man. I mean, look what happened to McLaurin last week. 1 catch for 10 yards. That's the floor you get with McLaurin. I don't think you're getting that floor with Neighbors. I think the safer play is Neighbors, and the upside is Neighbors as well. I think DeVito is going to try and prove he can still sling the rock. He's now interviewing for his job next year. So I think he's going to try find his number 1 guy.
And Colby?
Alpha's well alpha, so I understand if you want to go Neighbors, but I will be going Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we got Mr. Dynasty Rewind at Rewind CEO himself joining us. Michael Bauer. Folks, if you are not following the Dynasty Rewind on YouTube and or Twitter, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. One of the few brands here that we definitely co-sign and love the people over there, so definitely give them a follow. He needs some help. Pick one. Noah Brown, Alec Pierce, Jahan Dotson. Am I playing you? Is this a question where I have to be biased here? Let me quickly look up that while Keith gives us an answer here real quick.
For me, it would be Alec Pierce. Like if Washington was in a more competitive game, I would probably lean Noah Brown. But I mean, the Colts-Lions game, I think there's going to be a lot of points in it. The Lions are down 2 corners. And Alec Pierce is arguably, out of all wide receivers in football right now, the guy that can do more with less than anyone. Because, I mean, he's had so many games where it's like 2 catches, 90 yards, 3 catches, 100 yards. So I would go Alec Pierce.
Colby.
As much as I love Noah Brown, I'll chase the upside with Alec Pierce. Detroit's pretty man-heavy, and while Pierce may not have the best numbers against man coverage this year, Anthony Richardson has a big enough arm to get it down there. I'll chase the upside with Pierce. Brown, I think he's 100% right. This would be a game if it was a better game environment where Brown could get like a 6 for 75 or an 8 for 80. But at this point, it's literally going to be 75% Brian Robinson. In an ideal world, Jaden Daniels doesn't get hit once today. That would be perfect for them. So I will go Alec Pierce and honestly probably hope for the 2 for 90 and a long touchdown.
Yeah, I'm going to go Pierce, Brown, and then Dotson in this situation. Okay. Mike, thank you very much for the question. Hopefully that helps you. And no, we are not taking on each other in our Dynasty League, so I feel pretty good about that, or else it would have been Jahan Dotson all the way. Anywho, Steven over on YouTube has to say good morning. Good morning to you. Many bye weeks and a soft start by Pickens for me. Sorry, that's okay. That's why you're here to answer some questions. Looking for advice on 2 flex and 1 tight end, full PPR. All right, so basically 3 players we're looking at here. One of them has to be a tight end. Jennings, McConkey, Downs, Diddle, Disley, Jonnu. For me, the 2 flex are McConkey and Downs, even though Dowdle, it's PPR. Let me not overthink it. McConkey, Downs, Disley for my tight end. Keith, what are your thoughts here? Cannot hear you.
My bad. Yeah, I muted it because the dog was barking. Completely agree. Downs, McConkey. Disley Jonnu for me is, if you need the safe play, I think it's Disley because he's basically their only tight end now. If you need the upside play, Jonnu is somebody that has proved he can, break big plays, and he's been fine in the end zone, a good rib. But I lean Disley, especially with it being full PPR.
David?
Yeah, Disley is definitely the tight end play there. That's for sure. I actually like Jennings. Obviously, McConkey is the unanimous one that I feel like we're all picking, but Jennings to me just seems like a little bit of a safer play than Downs. So I'm going to go with Jennings, McConkey.
And Colby.
McConkey, Downs, and Disley. No tight end in, well, I shouldn't say no tight end. Disley has the 2nd most fantasy points per route run against cover 3, and that's what Baltimore loves to deploy. So McConkey, Downs, and Disley.
Mike Bauer says, thank you, gents. Thank you very much. Got Jacob in the YouTube chat. Ertz or Hunter Henry at tight end PPR. Let me tell you, I am not scared of this defense over the middle for the Dallas Cowboys, nor should you be, which is why I understand the appeal for Ertz. But again, it goes to the targets and where they're going for the New England Patriots, and the number 1 target has been Hunter Henry. So give me Hunter Henry, but I would not hate Ertz in this matchup. I think he has a great matchup at tight end. Colby, what are your thoughts here?
Hunter Henry, third guy.
David.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely go Hunter Henry. I think he's the volume is going Henry's way. Ertz is great, but I think he got lucky with that garbage time touchdown and 2-point conversion. But.
Yeah, I would go Hunter Henry.
All right. He also has another question. Which Bucs running back would you rather start in PPR this week? In terms of just like watching him play, I know Rachaad White should be the answer for PPR, just so the reception upside, how he's very inefficient on the ground. But damn, Bucky Irving is that guy. I still think you got to go Rachaad. And you know what? No, I'm going to go Bucky Irving. I think the Bucs get up ahead and they want to pound the rock a little bit more. We've seen Bucky Irving have a little bit more success doing that than Rachaad White. So give me Bucky Irving. Keith, let's start with you this time.
I'm going to have to go with Rachaad White because it's full point PPR. Otherwise, I would be going with Bucky Irving, but they run, he's been really good against the, the gap runs this year. It's something that New York is awful versus. I think he's actually averaging like 6.5 yards per carry in those situations. And I mean, let's be honest, White otherwise is averaging like 2 yards per carry versus everything. And then plus you get all that upside in the passing game. I know Evans is coming back, but I really feel like he is the one that has taken more of that Godwin role. He scored in just his last 4 games, 22 targets, 20 receptions, 5 touchdowns in the passing game. and the Giants allow almost 5 receptions per and the 9th most receiving yards in the league at almost 40 yards per game. So I'll take White just because I know I'm going to get points in the PPR, and he's actually should have more success from a scheme standpoint versus his Giants defense than he does versus most opponents.
I do like that stat for New York. Success rate at 59.5%, defense allowing on the season. Colby, what are your thoughts here?
I think it comes down to what you think of this game. If over the team's last 5 games, when leading, Bucky Irving trails only Sean Tucker and carries by 1, but has 9 more than Rashad White. Whereas when you go to when the team is trailing, when the team is trailing, Bucky Irving still kind of leads the way, but Rashad White gets utilized more in the passing attack. So I think it comes down to what you make of this game environment in this game script. If they're leading, it's Bucky. If they're trailing, it's Rashad White.
There we go. So without any more questions, we have no more questions on the Twitter machine, aka the X machine. Let me check over on Blue Sky. Seriously, folks, we're on like 8 social media platforms. Honestly, wherever you are, however you want to watch us, let us know. Go to Twitter or anywhere and just message us at Fantasy and Frames. Just trying to make sure we're not missing any questions here. Yes, I'm doing a lot of do-to-do-to-dos. Anyhow, I think that's going to round us out for today's show then. Colby, David, always great to see you guys. And Keith Fleming, is he on screen or did he leave the screen? There is Keith. Just really appreciate everybody tuning in. Keith, thank you very much for coming into this morning. Sorry about the Bulldogs, man. But you got the Battle of Texas going on, A&M versus Texas.
It'll all work out. It'll
all work out at the end. We got Charlene in the chat. We got one more question. Charlene says, "Thank you guys." Last question here. We got Lost Pond. I got AJ Brown, Neighbors, Reed, and Kittle. But should I use Jonnu as a flex? No. Do not do that. Okay. So that's going to round us out here on the Fantasy and Frames Fantasy Football Kickoff Show. Thank you all very much for tuning in. For those that celebrate, here in the States or abroad that are, from the States, Thanksgiving is coming up this week. We really appreciate all you all. We wish you a safe and happy holiday here coming up. And don't forget, the Fantasy and Frames show schedule is going to be kind of wonky this week just because we want to make sure that everybody has time to spend time with their families, while at the same time we still, there are still games to be played. We want to bring you fantasy football content. So articles will be accelerated, shows will be accelerated, but we will be around. And of course, you can follow each and every single one of us on social media. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next weekend. See you.